We are looking here at a collection of 10 early 19th century educational books for children used mostly in school systems or at home to educate and teach youth and young people how to read and write. This hand-graved frontis is probably hand-colored, almost certainly by an early owner, but it's quite interesting. It's well done, and it's just an interesting feature to this book here. This one is at this era, during this era, books were often made actually from thin pieces of actual wood. And here we see that, they were covered with a paper, and they had a leather spine, and this is often how they survive. This is interesting because here we also see that the early owner, he bought this book in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, in December, it looks like, of 1816, and there's the price that he paid for it. And this is an 1815 imprint, still sound and tight. And the next one is a similar binding with paper-covered boards, but here, instead of wood, we see an early cardboard. And this book here has an inscription from looks like 40-something or other, but it's 1838 Springfield. It's a reader, and it's got various range of authors on the contents leaf here, and there's even small woodcuts throughout it. Many more probably than we're missing most of them as we flip through, but we'll see a couple. And this is also part of the group, and here is a full leather binding in nice shape. It's an early book, Leominster, Massachusetts, 1804. It's an understanding reader. It's got an advertisement leaf at the rear from a publisher, Daniel Adams, of different school books. And you can see here the book has been well read and looked at. Books like this typically show signs of usage, like this one here. Some early owner has taken it upon themselves to put a cloth tape to hold the covers on. We see the same sort of cardboard board with paper covering. This one has a wood-engraved frontis of Minerva. It's 1823, Boston. Again, it's a reader, and it's shaken. The contents are shaken, but it appears to be complete. Here is another book with an early wood boards binding, and this is 1821. It's the Understanding Reader by Daniel Adams. And again, it's still sound and tight. There is a little bit of loss here to the contents leaf at the bottom, probably from careless handling by some young student at some point. Here is an 1831 paper-covered boards book with a charming wood-engraved frontis showing an Indian meeting a British officer. It's a juvenile reader in Pittsburgh. And this is interesting. Still sound and tight. This book is in a period full leather binding as issued. It's original to the book. It's the year 1809, Windsor, Vermont. Hugh Blair, Lectures on Rhetoric. Sound and tight as issued. And the final book in this collection is this here, which is very interesting because this is something you only see sometimes. An early owner has covered the book in their own custom leather case where they've cut out for the spine and then apparently glued this cover, although oftentimes these covers are not really fully glued on and can be removed, and when they are, they often reveal a book in almost as new condition. Here, somehow, this has been covered up with paper, but at any rate, you can see here the thickness of the leather covering covers the boards. It's an interesting home-done job to a book, but this is Newburyport 1816. It's very well worn, clearly much consulted and used. It's slightly defective. This leaf here is lacking some of its text. Same with here. But for school books of this era, this is just the way they survive. It's a typical example of a book intended for children, and this lot is available on my website, briandumambro.com.